Hey guys, welcome to the second part of the incoherent ramblings of a madman. I'm going to continue voicing over the sculpt process of the king chess piece, the human king chess piece. If you want to see it from the start, you can go to part 1, and then shortly after this video, probably a day or so, there'll be part 3. So there's only going to be 3 parts to this, and it's short and sweet, but hopefully you guys can take as much information as I put in. So, and if you appreciate, just leave a comment, and that'll be responded to and reflected upon. So we'll get straight into it. What we're doing at the moment is we're taking the cloak fur part of the model, and we're basically redefining some of the edges and making the cloak look as if it actually has fur strands on it. So as you can see, I am going through and I'm making larger strokes to basically knock in the direction of the fur, of where I want the fur to go, and obviously making it look like it flows whilst also not flowing in a sense, because obviously it's all static on the model. It's all solid to the model. And when doing 3D printing, it's important to not have things underneath causing issues. We call that a rat's nest. Basically, it's like inside the model where when it gets printed, there's holes and there's gaps where resin would stay, and eventually that will cause issues with the model if left that way, which chances are it will be if there is holes. So as you can see, I'm just continuing to sculpt the directional flow of the fur strands, moving to the beard and to the hair and the mustache, and doing the same thing. I like to move around a lot when I'm sculpting, basically trying to keep everything to the same level before I go nuts and sculpt one thing too far and then have to bring it back. It's just a waste of time, especially if it looks fine at a certain point. You don't have to go all that way. I've seen prints of this model already since obviously posting the first video. There's like the prints are amazing, like the shadows which are formed underneath his face, which is given by the ruffles around his neck, like the natural shadow that brings. It's mind blowing. I love it. I'll show some pictures in like a little gallery show reel thing towards the end, which would be very, very good to see, I guess. So I'm just at the moment I've worked in the tash, and I'm seeing things in the face, and I was working things in the face. I've gone to the hair now. You can see I'm moving around quite quickly. I'm redefining them shapes in the hair. Initially I had the little big strokes, and now I'm going in and I'm adding overlaying strands, which is going to give the hair a bit more life and a bit more volume, whilst also again not giving it volume. It's just an illusion, really. As long as it goes in and it comes out. If anyone wants a tutorial on how I sculpt hair, I'd happily do it, but this is pretty much it. It's very messy, alternating lines, making sure that some go in, some go out, giving the illusion that they are laying on top of each other when you can see they're not. So yeah, this is pretty much what I'm doing at the moment. The hair sculpting kind of takes a little bit of time, as does the fur. What am I doing now? Oh, I'm adding little studs on the crown. I do realise while I'm doing this that these studs aren't following the concept, but I think it makes more sense because these metal pieces that are coming off the crown would have to be like fused or riveted or something. So it looks like some sort of metal crown. So it's not a big fancy crown, I guess. It's not pure gold or anything, I imagine. But yeah, we're just moving around and making sure that our crown has got these rivets in each of the holes. I think we add one to the top piece as well. You can see on the concept that they go between the spikes, the prongs, the bits that go up, and we just make sure that they look as if they're fused into the straps, the the bands that go across the actual initial crown. So yeah, now we're just moving. We're messing around with the crown basically, just to make sure it fits and it looks nice. In correspondence to how the head looks. We knock out some of the edges, so we damage the edges a little bit around the rim. And I think I'm just making it so that the top has a bit of texture so it doesn't look completely round. I'm just damaging the edges here again on one of the prongs. And I'll just keep doing this. I'm doing this with a trim dynamic brush. Basically, it's a standard trim dynamic brush, and you just go in and you just knock out some of the edges and chamfer them, making sure that they're not completely samey and sharp. And no real work goes into this. It's just go around, whatever you want to knock out, just knock it out. I don't think it matters too much to the actual end product either. It's something for the render, I think. As long as like the render looks good, you know, they'll sell, basically, is what my mindset is typically. So I think during this part we'll actually go through making some of the base. Yeah, I'd bring in one of my old models and my old king, and I actually scale it to that, so they're the same size, you know, the same proportions. And I actually start sculpting the base. I do go through a few issues with the base. I go through a few crashes, which isn't particularly ideal. But yeah, what we're doing here is we're just adding some scratches. These are alphas that I think I bought from... No, I think they're the Orbs cracked ones. So if you download the Orbs cracked brushes, you get these as well. These are like the Orbs slashes. Easy. I usually put backface masking on when I'm using things like this because they come through the back side as well, and it's not ideal. It's not what we want. So just making it so the slashes only appear at the front. You need to turn on backface masking on the tool, and that will basically make it so the edges don't come through the back and pop through. You can see if you look through, you can see at the back that there's a bit of indentation on the back. That's from me using the clay brush, but not actually using backface masking for it. So it's almost sucked in the back of the prong, which again is not an issue because it's the back face is actually against the crown. So all we're doing really now is just damaging the crown in parts. The little nugget on the top, we're just using trim dynamic and making that less round. Same with the actual crown itself. And we go back to the fur on the collar. You know, we're going in and really hammering in these shapes now. So we've got a smaller brush, and we only did a little bit that time, but we'll go back to it eventually. And now you can see I've noticed the head looks crap, so I'm hiding away the hat, all the body, and just sculpting in some of this face just to make it look a little bit more like a face and less embarrassing, really. Again, I don't do that much because I know it's not going to be seen, but I just redefine some of that chin and the jawbone. Yeah, so moving the crown up to match the concept a little bit. I notice it looks a little bit too big and it needs to be tilted back a little bit, so I do that. And then I push the hair in to look as if it's coming from the crown. Well, not crown, but from his head. And obviously the crown's squishing it. It gives that extra level of dimension to the model. So you can see now I'm there pulling them out again to give the fur some kind of silhouette. Obviously all fur is not all the same length, so you'll have the disparity between them. Again, I'm going in and redefining his face. I think I use I'm demonstrating to somebody what Dynamesh does here. So obviously when you Dynamesh the big models and it's stretched, you can see like it's not a clean line. But when you do Dynamesh, you get a clean line. And what that does is basically it averages out all the polygons between the point on which you've stretched, and the point which you've stretched to. So it will average out all the squares on the model. And I'm demonstrating here, obviously if you stretch it too far in Dynamesh, it will cause issues. Again, Dynamesh examples here. I think I'm trying to break it, actually, but it didn't actually break. I couldn't break it. Yeah, all I was doing there was I was demonstrating what Dynamesh does. So if you stretch something from one part to another part, it'll stretch, and polygons will go to that point, but it won't fill in between. What Dynamesh does is it averages out the polygons between the point which you stretch from and the point which you've stretched to, and it basically makes them as basically squares. Or I think it's triangles. Basically, it makes it so you can sculpt on it. So that was a bit of a detour, but what I'm doing now is I'm just really hammering home these shapes. I think what am I making here? I think I'm making like a chest piece for the chest piece for the king. I notice he's wearing some sort of chest plate, but I didn't actually clock on. I think somebody told me that he's wearing a chest plate, and this is where I pretty much go in and do that instead. Eventually, when I actually start working and stop slacking. God, this is long. Yeah, well, there we are, we're back. So, what am I doing here? I think yeah, I notice it's just a chest plate, so I think I'll bring it up. I think I mask it at the top and I stretch it up, maybe. Yeah, I do. There you go. So that's me making changes on the fly based on what somebody else has seen, which is fair enough. I missed it, so I go back in and do that. You can also see there an example of what Dynamesh does. When I stretched it up, it had all the stretchy lines on that mesh, and then I Dynameshed it, and I was able to sculpt on it. So all I'm doing here is just making the shapes work, really. So like it's supposed to be metal, so I make it hard surface and make it look hard. Using trim dynamic and flatten brushes, you can just really make these edges go quite quick. But once I've got this, I think I move on to the neck band thing. There's a neck band just below his chin. Yeah, so all we're doing here is just using trim dynamic to sharpen these edges and flatten the rest. As you can see, just making it look like some sort of harder surface than what the rest is. Using the damp standard brush to make these lines. It also pinches slightly, so we get like a nice little pinch. But I think this is pretty much it. I don't know why I carried on past this point. If I did, it looks done to me. Yeah, I'm done. So now I'm making the band, which wraps from one side of the cloak to the other, basically to keep it on his shoulders, I'm guessing. And I go through a masking process on this. Basically, I want it to look as clean as possible, so I use masks. And I'll do that in a second. I think I'm thinking about the best way to do it. Usually happens halfway through a model. I'll just stop and I'll have a little think. Which is important because you don't want to do something and then have to do it again. So here I'm taking the mask tool, designing the shape, which is on the collar. I'm going to call it a collar. Design the shape that's on a collar, and it's like a nice kingly shape. I don't really know how to describe that shape, but it's quite fun to make. I think the king chess piece has one. I I think it's German inspired actually. It's like a German symbol. Maybe like Roman emperor thing, maybe. But I don't know why I initially did that design. I think I just made it symmetrical in terms of the actual design shape eventually. Because it looks like a fish. Or a mushroom or something. So yeah, not really much to say at this point. It's just making these shapes, and then obviously I change them once I realise it doesn't look very good. I'm like, I don't like it, so I go in and I'm blocking these shapes back to these and make it a bit more symmetrical. Again, this is all freehand, so it might look off, that's okay. I mean, I'm not the best in the world, but you know, I give it a good go. So yeah, once we've got these shapes, we can start using the mask tools. I think I crash at some point as well, and I do walk away. Yeah, so I'm just masking, and then I'm pushing it in. I say hello to my dog. My dog comes up. So it gets in the way a lot. I like to give him a cuddle and stuff when I'm working, but it does get in the way. There you go, showing him off. He keeps pulling my hand while I'm trying to work. So that's the reason I don't have him up much. So here I'm just trying to work out a way to ZRemesh it to make the mesh a little bit cleaner, but it doesn't actually work with complex shapes, especially shapes that have gone in and they've got these indents and things. So I think I don't bother with it in the end. I think it ruins too much of my my crisp edges, so I just removed it. Oh no, I think I went with it. Okay, so now I'm making the patterns on the inside of the oh no, I'm making the stitch in between the little bands, which is, I think one of my Twitch viewers, they said, oh, I looked away for like 10 seconds and you've got an intricate design. This is literally the simplest design on the model, I think. It's just a bunch of primitive shapes. But it just goes to show how powerful primitive shapes are in terms of simple designs. Because you can make something look really intricate just by doing, obviously, what I'm doing right now. I think I saw something on the head and I decided to change it on the fly. Yeah, so I'm taking a cylinder and I'm placing that in a pattern, merging them together, bringing down a ring, placing that ring on top of the cylinders, and then I think I bring it back, bring the cylinder back, bring the ring back so it pushes into the model when I place it, and that will obviously remove any issues that happens obviously with, like I said before, rats' nests, and basically gives that stability of the model. So I merge these together and I place them inside the ring. And I do that for all 4 bits, and I just mirror it across for the ones on the left. And I go back on the Dynamesh because it wasn't working for me. Yeah, simple design, nothing special. I don't actually do anything more than that, actually. I just leave it because it's going to be so small on the print anyway, it really won't matter. I just go in and smooth it instead of changing things. So that's it. That's the collar design done. And now I go back in and do some of the beard. Again, same job as the mustache and the fur. It's just directional sculpting first, I don't think I actually do any directional sculpting, it's just straight into the little bits. Which I think is why the beard doesn't look particularly that great. I think you need to have that foundation, you need to build on layers and make sure that it's all working. And it's flowing before you sculpt in the rest. Oh! I don't know what happened there. That's the ZBrush screensaver. I must have been away for a while. I don't know what happened. Ah, okay. Ah, I think that was a cut actually. I went for a little break. I think I went to feed my dogs actually. So yeah, so I'm just moving around and doing things. I go back in and obviously I erase some of the stuff I did before. I don't know why I redid this because it looked fine. I don't. Yeah, things you do on the job, I guess. Yeah, I'm literally just redoing what I did. It's exactly the same. Trust in the process, guys. If it looks fine, just go with it. I tell this to myself all the time. So we're just layering on these shapes. It does look a little bit better actually. Okay. So just layering in these hair shapes. Yeah, they all layer on top of each other. But we make it work. Nothing to really talk about at this point. It's just hair sculpting. I'm using the Orbs Crack brush, the Clay Tubes brush on a Lazy Mouse, I believe, and a bit of smooth, a bit of trim dynamic, depending on what I'm using or what part I'm doing. Ah, this is the point where I duplicate the face. I make a Z-remeshed version, which is going to be a low poly version. So when I smooth it, it'll be like really nice and clean. And then I project my old model onto my new model, and it'll give it subdivisions, which is also, I can go down in the subdivision, and I can make these really nice lines because obviously that's the flow of the topology, so it's going with the topology, so it's making these almost natural creases in the bits that I'm sculpting on. This is good for like the end stuff. So when you're using Dynamesh, you'll get topology and stuff in places where you don't necessarily want. But obviously, when you're using quads, you'll get big surface areas in places where there's big surface areas, and you'll get the edge loops which conform to the shape of the face, which is really ideal for detailing and really knocking your model to the next level. Yeah, so I think there's not really much else to do at this point. Right now, I'd call this pretty much done, except for probably the fur on the back of the neck, which I did see, and I'm working on the fur again. So yeah, there we go. So I didn't actually realise that's what I was doing next, but I saw it. So yep, this is where I bring in my old Goblin King, and I size it up and start to block in the base, and I'll end this part when I make the base, or start to really work on making the bases. There are a few crashes during that next part, I think. So there's quite a few choppy bits you might notice, I guess, but we'll see what happens. So at the moment, I'm just bringing in the Goblin King, as I said. I need to scale this down to the size of the king, or scale the king up to the size of the goblin piece. And basically I need to make so the base is the same, the spine is pretty much the same. So I decided to scale it down initially. Obviously that Goblin King is the right size when I import it in, so eventually I'll scale it up the other way. So I'll scale the king up instead of scaling the Goblin King down. It's just easier to move at this point since the human king is in progress. So you can see I'm just overlaying these and trying to get the proportions right of the base and the spine. Obviously it all comes out a little bit more. It chunks up when I start adding all the details and the shapes on it, which is understandable. It's what happens. So this is just a little bit of cleanup that I do every now and again. I'll cut down the edges and I'll push things in. I'll try and make it look and feel a bit more slender than it is, because it's quite a chunky boy. So here I am doing the panels on the chest piece. I'm just all I'm doing at this point is just blocking in the design. So I'm not actually doing the design, I'm just blocking it in. It's not final, it's not something I go with, but it's just something that I like to do to just give me a sense of where things are going to go. So I'm using the shift key to draw a line. It's same as it is on programs such as Photoshop, where you just draw a line and you hold shift and it goes straight. But this actually keeps to obviously the point and to the point of your mouse. So if you draw a line, it'll just draw a line from that point. Very handy. I don't use it enough at all. So here I am just making the base, making the base thing, blocking in the shape of the shield. Randomly drawing the shape of the thing, the little plate logo thing. I don't know what it is. Drawing that in. It's way too small at this point, I think. So yeah, so I'm making it bigger. Blocking in some chain. Really hammering home the design and trying to make it fit first before I actually try and build anything in. So this is probably I probably start at the I'm messing around with the radial thing, trying to come up with a different design to what's actually there. But I think I just go with the brick, which is on all the models, and I decide that in the end there's like a brick that we like to go for. Oh yeah, brick. Yeah, easy brick. Yep, so we're just defining some of these shapes and making these pillar bits. So I think I'm going to leave this here and we're going to continue on with the rest of the part of the video. So I appreciate the watch, guys. If you like what you see, just subscribe, and things like this will come in the future if there's a positive outlook to them all. Thanks, guys. Cheers for watching.